At the Christmas night party, my daughter gave me an expensive diamond. In a valley cradled by the whisper-wind mountains, where ancient pines stood sentinel against the biting frost, lay the village of Oak Haven. It was a place woven from muted colors and quiet lives, save for the vibrant heart of the Christmas season. Snow fell like forgotten stardust, blanketing the cobblestone paths and the gabled roofs of cottages, transforming the ordinary into a realm of hushed magic. Here lived Elias, a woodcarver whose hands, once famed throughout the kingdom, now trembled slightly with age and the cold of a dwindling coin purse. His face, etched with the lines of past glories and present worries, often softened only for one person, his daughter, Lyra. Lyra was a wisp of a girl, with hair the color of spun moonlight and eyes that held the innocent depth of a winter's sky. She was Elias's sunrise and his sunset, the last ember of warmth in a life that had grown increasingly shadowed. Elias had once been the master of his craft. His carvings, tales etched in wood, had graced the halls of lords and the hearths of common folk. But time, like a cruel river, had eroded his renown. Younger carvers, with fresh eyes and quicker hands, had emerged, and Elias's intricate, deeply soulful pieces were deemed too slow, too old-fashioned. He bore his decline with a quiet dignity, but beneath the surface, a gnawing ache persisted, a longing for the days when his artistry commanded respect, when he could provide Lyra with more than just threadbare warmth and the fading echoes of an illustrious past. The year of our tale, the Christmas Eve party in Oak Haven was a modest affair, held in the common hall. The scent of pine and cinnamon mingled with the subtle smoke from the grand hearth. Children chased each other amidst the adults, their laughter bright as holly berries. Elias sat with Lyra by a roaring fire, his gaze distant, his heart heavy. He had managed to sell only a few small pieces. That season, barely enough to keep the wolf from the door. Lyra, sensing his unspoken melancholy, squeezed his hand, her small fingers warm against his calloused ones. Then came the moment for gifts. They were simple, mostly handmade, tokens of affection rather than wealth. Elias had carved Lyra a small, exquisitely detailed robin, its wings poised for flight, a symbol of hope he desperately wished for both of them. Lyra took her turn, her cheeks flushed with excitement, her eyes sparkling like fresh snow. She approached Elias, a small, velvet pouch clutched in her hands. "Father," she began, her voice a soft bell, "I know you worry. I know you wish for things to be as they once were. I found something. Something that whispers of old magic, of dreams come true." Elias smiled, a gentle, weary smile. "Any gift from you, my star, is all I need." But as Lyra opened the pouch, a gasp rippled through the small gathering. Even the merriment died down, replaced by a stunned silence. Nestled within the dark velvet, pulsed a diamond unlike anything anyone in Oak Haven had ever seen. It was the size of a pigeon's egg, cut into a perfect teardrop, and it radiated an impossibly pure, ethereal light. It wasn't just reflecting the firelight, it seemed to contain a miniature, shifting cosmos within itself, swirling with iridescent blues, greens, and silvers. It hummed with an almost audible energy, a cold, silent melody that resonated deep within the chest. "It is, the Stardust Tear," Lyra whispered, her voice full of awe, as if repeating a sacred name. "I found it, Father. Deep in the whispering woods, where the ancient fee paths are said to cross. An old woman, cloaked in gray, showed me its hiding place. She said it grants the deepest desires, but only to those who truly love, and only if offered with a pure heart." Lyra's eyes, so full of innocent belief, fixed on her father's. "I want you to be happy again, Father. I want your hands to sing in wood once more. I want your carvings to fly on the winds of fame, just like the old tales you tell me." Elias stared at the diamond, his breath caught in his throat. It was magnificent, terrifying in its beauty, and undoubtedly of immense value. Where had such a thing come from? The old woman's words, recounted by Lyra, sent a tiny shiver down his spine. Pure heart, deepest desires. It sounded like a fee bargain, potent and perilous. But the desire to reclaim his skill, to banish the shame of his decline, to provide a life of comfort for Lyra, was a roaring bonfire in his soul. He took the diamond, his fingers clumsy, almost burnt by its cold brilliance. That night, alone in his cottage with the stardust tear glowing softly on his workbench, Elias held it aloft. The village slept, blanketed by snow, but a storm of ambition and hope raged within him. He thought of Lyra's innocent wish, her unwavering belief in him. He thought of his gnarled, aching hands. He thought of the half-finished, uninspired carving of a fox that sat mocking him. "I wish," he whispered to the shimmering stone, his voice hoarse with longing, "I wish for my hands to be as they once were, even more so. I wish for my artistry to return, to surpass all I have ever achieved, so I may once again bring honor to my name and security to my daughter." A sudden chill swept through the cottage, extinguishing the candle on his table. For a moment, utter darkness. Then, the stardust tear pulsed, a single, blinding flash of condensed starlight. When Elias could see again, his hands felt different. Lighter, agile, entirely without tremor or ache. He picked up a rough block of oak, a carving knife. His hands began to move. The cold, unyielding wood seemed to soften beneath his touch, yielding to his will with an almost supernatural ease. He worked through the night, forgetting time, forgetting sleep. By dawn, a magnificent falcon, its every feather articulated, its eyes keen and predatory, perched on his workbench. It was a masterpiece, finer than anything he had ever created. The next morning, his reputation, like a phoenix, began to rise from the ashes. Word of Elias's miraculous return to form spread like wildfire. Orders poured in from across the kingdom. Lords and ladies, once dismissive, now clamored for his work. Gold, once a scarce commodity, flowed into his coffers. The humble cottage was transformed, filled with warmth and plenty. Lyra, seeing her father's joy, beamed. "I knew it, father," she cried, dancing around his new, expansive workshop. The stardust tear truly worked. But even amidst this newfound prosperity, a subtle change had begun. Elias, caught in a whirlwind of creation and commissions, barely noticed Lyra. She seemed quieter, a little more fragile. Her laughter, once a joyous cascade, was now a softer, more infrequent murmur. Her eyes, though still beautiful, held a hint of wistfulness, a distant sorrow Elias couldn't quite place. He dismissed it as the natural transition of a girl growing into a young woman, perhaps a touch of winter melancholia. He hired the best healers when she complained of an occasional chill, but they found nothing amiss. "She is thriving, Master Elias," they always assured him, a picture of health. He believed them, because he wanted to. One day, as he completed a grand commission for the king, a life-sized stag carved from a single ancient redwood, its antlers reaching to the heavens, Elias felt a renewed surge of ambition. His skill was undeniable, but he yearned for more than just a fleeting fame. He desired immortality, for his name to be etched into the annals of history, for his work to be etched into the annals of history, for his work to be revered centuries hence. He sought out the stardust tear, which he now kept in a locked velvet box by his bed, a talisman of his success. It pulsed gently whenever he neared it. Lyra had been particularly quiet that day, her movements slow, her skin almost translucent. She sat by the window, watching the falling snow with an unnerving stillness. A pang of unease struck Elias, but it was quickly overshadowed by the intoxicating allure of his ambition. "Stardust tear," he whispered, holding the jewel in his trembling hand, "I wish for my name, Elias, the woodcarver, to echo through the ages. I wish for my art to be immortal, for its beauty to be sung of by future generations, for my legacy to never fade." Again, the cold chill, the momentary darkness, followed by an even more brilliant flash from the diamond. The very air in the room seemed to hum with concentrated power. Soon after, messengers arrived from distant lands, bearing tales of Elias's work being placed in prestigious academies, studied by scholars, admired by emperors. His fame eclipsed that of all living artists. He was lauded as a master, a legend in his own time. Gold poured in beyond measure, enough to build a small palace if he wished. But the price, though invisible to most, was being paid in full. Lyra, once a vibrant flower, was fading. Her steps became hesitant, her voice a mere whisper. Her skin, once fair, now seemed almost transparent, as if the light were passing through her. Her hair, once moonlight, now seemed brittle, grayish in places. Her eyes, those beautiful, sky-deep eyes, were now clouded with a profound, unearthly sorrow. She spent her days gazing out at the snow, a silent, knowing figure, wrapped in blankets that could no longer seem to warm her. Elias, consumed by his monumental projects and the clamor of his fame, was blind. He saw only Lyra's frailty, not its source. He summoned the finest doctors from the capital, alchemists and mystics, but none could diagnose her ailment. A wasting sickness, they murmured, shaking their heads. A strange melancholy. They prescribed tonics and elixirs, but Lyra only grew weaker. One frigid Christmas Eve, 2 years after the diamond came into their lives, Lyra lay in her magnificent bed, arrayed in the finest silks money could buy. But the silks did not hide the truth, she was a mere shadow. Her breath was shallow, her heart a faint flutter. Elias sat beside her, his hand clutching hers. Her fingers were impossibly cold, like marble. The weight of his success, the accolades, the unceasing demands of his patrons, suddenly felt hollow, meaningless. All he saw was his dying daughter. He reached for the stardust tear, which he now wore around his neck on a golden chain, a symbol of his power and prosperity. The diamond pulsed with a faint, mocking light. Lyra stirred, her eyes fluttering open. They met his, and in their depths, Elias finally saw it, not sickness, but a profound, ancient sadness, a knowing resignation that twisted his gut. "Father," she whispered, her voice barely audible, like autumn leaves skittering across ice. "The stardust tear, it takes the warmth, the light, from the one who loves you most, for every wish born of greed." Elias gasped, his blood running cold. "What are you saying, Lyra? What magic is this?" A tear, the last she had left, traced a path down her pale cheek. "The old woman in the woods, she told me, but I didn't understand. She said, 'It drinks from the wellspring of love, Master Elias. The more you take for yourself, the deeper it drains the source of your joy.' It wasn't just a diamond, it was a hungry, beautiful parasite, feeding on the very essence of Lyra's innocent, unconditional love for him. Every stroke of wood, every admiring gaze, every ounce of his renewed fame, had been purchased not with gold, but with pieces of his daughter's life force, her warmth, her laughter, her light. He had wished for his dreams, and the diamond had fulfilled them by consuming her. He looked at the diamond, burning on his chest, and then at Lyra's fading form. His masterpiece, the gigantic carved stag that stood in the royal courtyard, its majestic antlers piercing the sky, now seemed like a grotesque monument to his selfishness. "No," he choked, tears streaming down his face, "no, my star, my Lyra. Tell me it's not true. Tell me I can fix this." He ripped the diamond from his neck, its cold brilliance now feeling like a searing brand. "I wish it all away," he cried, his voice raw with despair. "Take it all. My skill, my fame, my wealth. Take every cursed piece of it, and give me back my daughter." The stardust tear flared, brighter than ever before, blinding him. The air crackled with power, a sound like 1,000 whispers screaming his folly. When the light faded, the room was silent. Lyra's hand, which he had still desperately clutched, went limp. Her eyes, open and fixed on him, had lost their last spark of life. Her breath had ceased. The warmth that had been Lyra, however diminished, was gone entirely. Nothing remained but the chilling cold of her skin. And the diamond, the exquisite, terrible stardust tear, lay inert in his palm, its internal glow extinguished. It was just a stone now, cold and lifeless, though still beautiful in its cutting. For all its power, it could not reverse what it had done. It could only consume. Elias let out a cry that tore through the quiet, snow-laden night, a sound of such profound, unutterable grief that it seemed to freeze the very snowflakes in the air. His wealth was still there, his fame still sung, his skill still sharp. But Lyra was gone. The old woman's warning, Lyra's innocent wish, his own boundless ambition, they had converged into this solitary, devastating truth. From that night forward, Elias carved no more. His hands, though still capable of miracles, now felt heavy, cursed. The sight of wood filled him with dread, reminding him of what he had built upon his daughter's dwindling life. He gave away his wealth, abandoned his grand workshop, and returned to his small, humble cottage, which now felt vast and empty. He lived out his days a broken man, haunted by the memory of Lyra's fading light and the sound of her last, whispered truth. The stardust tear sat on his mantelpiece, a constant, silent reminder of his tragic bargain, its beauty a perpetual torment. It was an expensive diamond indeed, for it had cost him everything. And as the snow fell each Christmas, blanketing Oak Haven in its hushed magic, Elias would sit by the fire, alone, his heart a tomb of regret, eternally bound to the tragic fairy tale he had unknowingly authored, the one where he had wished for the stars, and in doing so, had extinguished his own. Thanks for watching.